The forgotten healing of Jesus, Asutha revealed, the Aramaic code for restoration. What if the greatest healing performed by Jesus was never about curing the body alone? What if one forgotten Aramaic word carried a meaning so profound that it embraced the restoration of the entire human being, body, mind, soul, and spirit? For centuries, this word has remained hidden behind translations that captured only part of its power. Yet once you understand why Jesus spoke this ancient word, you may never think about healing the same way again. Stay with me until the end, because today you will discover the forgotten Aramaic code of restoration known as Asutha. For nearly 2,000 years, the teachings of Jesus have traveled across cultures through translations that faithfully preserved much of his message while inevitably losing some of the richness carried by his original language. The words first spoken along the shores of Galilee were heard in Aramaic, the language of everyday life, healing, family, and prayer. Then, in 1945, near Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, one of the most important archaeological discoveries in Christian history took place. A collection of ancient manuscripts, hidden for centuries beneath the desert sands, revealed early Christian writings that had never become part of the official biblical canon. These texts did not replace the Gospels, but they reminded historians and scholars that the earliest followers of Jesus often emphasized inner transformation, restoration, and direct spiritual awakening. They also renewed interest in the original spiritual vocabulary surrounding the ministry of Jesus, inviting the modern world to rediscover meanings that had gradually faded through centuries of translation. To understand why this matters, we must remember that Jesus did not teach ordinary fishermen, shepherds, and families in Greek, nor did he reserve his deepest moments for formal Hebrew alone. He spoke Aramaic because it was the living language of the people. More importantly, ancient Aramaic was understood as carrying more than information. Every word united breath, intention, determination, and living presence. To speak was to release meaning through sound itself. Many spiritual traditions believe that certain sacred words resonated with the deepest levels of human consciousness. This brings us to Asutha-su-tha, meaning healing, restoration, wholeness, recovery, and the complete renewal of life. Within the Aramaic worldview, Asutha was never limited to the disappearance of illness. It described the restoration of harmony wherever life had become fractured. Many seekers believe that speaking Asutha with reverence awakens an ancient remembrance within the soul, reconnecting us with the original design placed in humanity by the Creator. This explains something remarkable about the ministry of Jesus. Whenever he healed, he rarely treated only symptoms. He restored people to community, dignity, hope, identity, and relationship with God. Blind eyes opened, but so did forgotten purpose. Diseased bodies recovered, but broken lives were also made whole. The miracle reached beyond flesh into the deepest dimensions of the person. The Gospel of Mark repeatedly shows that every healing performed by Jesus carried both physical and spiritual significance. Healing was never merely about removing pain. It was about restoring the fullness of life itself. That is the forgotten depth hidden inside Asutha. When most people hear the word healing, they immediately think of sickness. They imagine disease disappearing, wounds closing, or physical suffering coming to an end. While these miracles are certainly part of the gospel, the original vision presented by Jesus reaches much further. Healing begins wherever separation ends. Many people appear healthy while carrying invisible wounds that no medical examination can detect. Some have never recovered from rejection experienced decades earlier. Others continue living beneath guilt, shame, disappointment, grief, or outwardly they function well. Yet inwardly, something remains fractured. This is exactly why Asutha becomes so extraordinary. As Asutha-su-tha, meaning healing, restoration, and complete renewal, thus not invite us to repair isolated parts of life. It calls every fragmented piece back into harmony. Think about the people who came to Jesus. Some were physically ill. Others were emotionally exhausted. Some had been rejected by society. Others carried spiritual despair. Yet regardless of their condition, Jesus always looked beyond the visible problem. He recognized the deeper wound that had disconnected them from hope. This perspective changes the way we understand restoration. True healing is not simply the removal of pain. It is the return of life where fear once ruled. It is the recovery of purpose after disappointment. It is the restoration of hope where despair had become normal. Modern psychology increasingly recognizes that emotional trauma influences physical well-being. Long before these discoveries, Jesus demonstrated that human beings cannot be separated into isolated compartments. Body, mind, emotions, and spirit continually influence one another. Perhaps this explains why forgiveness appears so often alongside healing in the Gospels. Resentment imprisons the heart. Fear drains strength. Shame isolates the soul. Every time Jesus restored someone, he addressed the whole person rather than a single symptom. Imagine what your life would look like if healing extended beyond your body. What relationships would change? What fears would disappear? What dreams would awaken again? That is the invitation hidden inside Asutha. The next chapters will reveal why many ancient seekers believe that restoration begins long before visible miracles, apparent how Jesus consistently awakened that process from the inside outward. If this teaching already feels this deep, imagine having a full guide with deeper explanations of JESUS's. You'll find the link to the study guide in the comments. And the best is yet to come in the next chapters. You'll discover what could change everything for you. If healing were limited to the body, then every person who recovered physically would immediately experience lasting peace. Yet life continually proves otherwise. Many people carry healthy bodies while living with exhausted minds, wounded hearts, broken relationships, and spirits burdened by fear. Others continue searching for answers long after every visible symptom has disappeared. This reveals a profound truth that Jesus understood from the very beginning. Healing is never complete until the whole person is restored. This forgotten understanding lies at the heart of Azu. THA-R-SU-THA, meaning healing, restoration, renewal, and the return of life to its original harmony. The word itself does not describe simply removing illness. It describes restoring what has been fragmented. Wherever separation exists, Asutha seeks reunion. Wherever life has become divided, Asutha calls it back into wholeness. Think about the people who encountered Jesus. The blind did not simply receive sight. They regained participation in society. Those afflicted with leprosy were restored not only to health, but also to family, friendship, worship, and dignity. The woman who had suffered for years was not merely freed from physical suffering. She was publicly acknowledged, honored, and invited back into community. Every miracle restored something far deeper than the visible condition. This pattern appears again and again throughout the Gospels. Before changing circumstances, Jesus restored identity. Before transforming lives outwardly, he healed the hidden places that no one else could see. He recognized that a wounded soul often continues living as though it were still imprisoned, even after external chains have been removed. From a Gnostic perspective, this becomes especially meaningful. Many early mystical traditions described illness as more than physical imbalance. They spoke of forgetfulness as separation from the divine light already present within every human being. Whether understood symbolically or spiritually, the invitation remained the same. Remember your original and healing begins. The journey is not about becoming someone new, but recovering the wholeness that has always existed beneath fear, shame, and suffering. Perhaps this explains why Jesus never rushed through healing encounters. He paused, he listened, he asked questions whose answers he already knew. He looked into people's eyes before touching their wounds. Restoration was never mechanical. It was deeply personal because every person's brokenness carried its own story. Now consider your own life. What part of you still longs to be restored? Is it your confidence after years of disappointment? Your capacity to trust after betrayal? Maybe the deepest healing you need cannot be seen by anyone around you. That does not make it less real. In fact, It may be the very place where Asutha is already beginning its quiet work. And there is something even more remarkable waiting to be discovered. The miracles of Jesus reveal a hidden sequence that almost everyone overlooks, a sequence showing that true restoration always begins within consciousness before it transforms the visible world. One of the greatest misunderstandings about healing is the belief that it arrives only after everything is changed. We tell ourselves that peace will come once the diagnosis improves, that joy will return after circumstances become easier, or that confidence will appear when every problem has finally disappeared. Yet the life of Jesus reveals exactly the opposite. Inner restoration consistently came before outward transformation. This is the deeper wisdom carried by Asutha-Su-Tha, meaning healing, restoration, renewal, and complete wholeness. Healing begins the moment the soul reconnects with its divine source. Long before the body responds or circumstances improve, something within us begins returning to its original order. That inward shift becomes the foundation upon which every other form of restoration is built. Notice how Jesus often spoke words of encouragement before any visible miracle occurred. He restored hope before movement. He awakened faith before healing. He called people back into relationship before changing their circumstances. These moments reveal that restoration was never merely an event. It was a process that began inside the human heart. Modern science increasingly recognizes the profound connection between emotional well-being and physical health. Chronic stress influences the immune system. Fear alters the body's chemistry. Hope strengthens resilience. Forgiveness reduces emotional burden. While these discoveries belong to modern research, they echo principles already demonstrated throughout the ministry of Jesus. He treated the human being as an inseparable unity rather than isolated parts. From a Gnostic perspective, healing also involves awakening. The false self becomes trapped in fear, limitation, and separation. The awakened self begins remembering its participation in divine life. Asutha therefore becomes much more than recovery from illness. It is the restoration of the entire person to the harmony intended from the beginning. Imagine waking each morning, no longer defined by your wounds. Imagine remembering that your deepest identity has never been your diagnosis, your failures, your disappointments, or your past. Those experiences may have shaped your journey, but they were never created to define your essence. This is the freedom that Jesus quietly offered every person he encountered. Perhaps this explains why so many miracles ended with a simple invitation. Go in peace. Healing was never intended to remain an isolated moment. It became a new way of living, thinking, and relating to God, to others, and to oneself. Restoration continued long after the visible miracle had ended because Asutha had already begun rebuilding the person's entire inner world. Today, that same invitation remains open. The deepest restoration may begin before you notice any outward change. It begins the moment you stop identifying with your brokenness and start remembering the wholeness that the divine has always seen within you. Right now, you might be asking yourself, why am I only discovering this truth now? Don't worry, we thought about that. We're here to help you go deeper with a guide made for this journey. The link is in the comments. As we reach the end of this journey, one extraordinary truth becomes impossible to ignore. Jesus never viewed healing as the simple removal of suffering. Every miracle pointed towards something far greater, the restoration of the human being to the life God intended from the beginning. This is the forgotten beauty hidden inside Asutha-Su, meaning healing, restoration, renewal, and complete wholeness. Throughout his ministry, Jesus consistently restored what the world believed could never be repaired. He restored hope to those who had accepted despair, dignity to those rejected by society, purpose to those who believed their lives no longer mattered, and peace to hearts that had forgotten what peace even felt like. His miracles remind us that divine restoration always reaches deeper than appearances. From a Gnostic perspective, every human soul carries within it a spark of divine life, waiting to be remembered. Fear, shame, disappointment, and suffering may cover that light, but they never destroy it. Asutha is the invitation to uncover what has always been present beneath the wounds. Healing, therefore, is not becoming someone different. It is remembering who you truly are beneath everything life has placed upon you. Perhaps the greatest illness of our generation is not physical weakness, but spiritual fragmentation. We become divided between who we are and who we believe we should be. We carry old fears into new opportunities. We continue living from yesterday's pain while praying for tomorrow's miracles. Jesus gently calls us back into wholeness. That is where restoration truly begins. When the soul returns to its center, fear begins losing its authority. Hope quietly returns. Relationships begin to heal. Forgiveness becomes possible. Even difficult circumstances no longer define our identity because the deepest part of us has already been restored by the divine presence. This is the living invitation contained within Asutha. Not simply to recover from illness, but to become whole again. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. True healing is not created in a single extraordinary moment. It grows through faithful daily practice, quiet awareness, and a continual return to the divine source. That is why I invite you to experience as you Tha-Su-Tha, meaning healing, restoration, renewal, and complete wholeness as more than an ancient word. Let it become part of your daily spiritual life for the next 21 days. Each morning before the noise of the day begins, find one quiet minute. Sit comfortably, breathe deeply, and slowly pronounce Asutha 7 times. As you speak, do not focus on your illness, your fears, or your limitations. Instead, imagine every repetition restoring another forgotten part of your soul. Allow yourself to remember that healing begins within, long before it appears outwardly. Throughout the day, whenever anxiety, discouragement, emotional pain, or physical weakness captures your attention, pause for a moment, take one conscious breath, and softly repeat Asutha once again. Rather than asking, "Why am I still broken?" ask yourself, what part of my life is the divine restoring today? This simple shift transforms your attention from fear toward hope. Before sleeping, write down 3 moments in which you experienced restoration. They may seem small. A peaceful conversation, unexpected strength, forgiveness, gratitude, renewed courage, or simply a quieter heart. These are all expressions of Asutha unfolding within you. Remember, this is not a magical formula. It is a daily discipline of returning your awareness to the complete restoration that Jesus continually offered to everyone he encountered. Just a quick reminder, the transformation guides for a fuller life are waiting for you, right there in the comments. Before you leave, if this message touched your heart or brought new understanding into your life, write the word restoration in the comments below. Your testimony may encourage someone else who is seeking healing and renewal. Thank you for sharing this moment of ancient wisdom with us. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the restoring power of